Awesome. All right. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in, and hello to the folks that are going to be watching this after the fact that we've posted this. But this is our going to be our first Webflow Developers Office Hours. So thanks for joining in. You may have joined a similar meeting in the past called Appy Hour, but we're going to be just doing this more frequently, calling these office hours. So just a heads up, it's kind of the same vein, but we're going to be going over, well, actually, I'll show you what we're going to be going over. But just to kind of kick things off, wanted to introduce ourselves. So we are the Webflow Developer Relations team, and we are more than three folks, but we're going to be speaking on behalf of a ton of other folks building awesome stuff for developers, building so that you can build stuff on Webflow. So we've got Virat here, Vic, and myself. And we've also got a guest today. We are joined by Julian from Memberstack. Julian, do you want to say any quick words?
Hello. Well, I have been a Webflow developer for like 7 or 8 years, and my job at Memberstack is to just do really cool stuff with Webflow. Obviously, code components are amazing, so I have just been exploring them a whole bunch, and I'm very excited to share with you what it is that I built. I built a lot of stuff, but yeah. So whenever you see me, just know I'm trying to show you how to do cool stuff with Webflow.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Julian. Yeah, we're really excited to see some of the stuff going to be presented today. So just a quick overview of the agenda. We're going to be talking a bit about what is the developer platform at Webflow, what all does it encompass. Um, we'll talk about some announcements, some featured topics such as the MCP server and code components. Really exciting stuff we're seeing out in the community. Can't wait to dig into that. And we'll talk about things that are coming up, and then we'll wrap up with some Q&A and leave ample amount of time in case folks have questions there. So you've got the entire team, or most of the team here, some folks in the audience, so feel free to shoot away your questions in the chat at any time. Cool, so we'll dig into the developer platform. So just to kind of give an overview of like what Webflow has traditionally encompassed as part of the developer platform, you may have traditionally thought of, from a developer standpoint, only being able to use APIs, whether that was like data or designer APIs. You could use those to build Webflow apps, and then kind of, work with some custom code in the code embeds or adding your own custom scripts to kind of tap into third-party functionality or more advanced functionality to really enhance that Webflow site. And over time, Webflow has released a few different things here that have made kind of building Webflow sites a bit easier, both from front end and back end perspectives. So we released DevLink a while back where it allowed you to bring Webflow components back into your React code. And that was kind of like part one of it. And later on, we allowed the ability to bring your React components into Webflow, which we call Code Components, but it's all through the guise of DevLink. And then we also recently this year released Webflow Cloud, which is super exciting, a way to essentially build Next.js, Astro web apps that deploy right alongside your Webflow sites. So you can have them living on a specific route within your Webflow site and have it all under the same domain, which introduces a myriad of benefits here. And we're continually building on this platform. It's really exciting. And if you haven't checked out the developer docs on like how to get started, please feel free. It's in developers.webflow.com, and you'll find a number of examples as well as getting started guides on kind of how to get started on this whole process. We'll also talk about some new features coming out that improve the whole developer experience as far as what kind of features you can use with Webflow Cloud, and it's going to be super exciting. So yeah, we'll dig into that. Um, and just to kind of blow up this bubble here, there's a ton of other things that were released this year. Like I mentioned, code components, but we've also released the MCP server, lots of MCP hype, and we're really excited to kind of continue building on that momentum and building tooling and improving that experience here. Alongside that, we've got browser APIs that work seamlessly with optimize and analyze products, more around custom code, just a whole ton of things, and we're continually growing the platform. If you haven't checked out the Webflow conference keynote, highly recommend, so you kind of get a sneak peek of things that are coming out. And we're really excited. We're excited to kind of just get our hands on some of the stuff as well internally and play around with all of that. So yeah, the other thing we wanted to talk about are deprecation of some internal APIs. Um, for a majority of developers building on Webflow, this won't really impact your workflows. This does not affect any of the public-facing APIs that you see on our developer docs. Really, what this is we had noticed some developers kind of tinkering around with some internal APIs to kind of help facilitate a myriad of different things about how they build sites, manage classes and styles and things like that. So we've and you'll see in our developer docs, there's a section in our changelog about some internal APIs, and they're really focused around individual sites. So they're not like broader APIs. Available, but these are going to be sunset very late 2026 as we kind of prepare for the real-time feature to ramp up and become generally available to the masses. And so again, this really isn't going to affect a whole slew of folks, just some folks who are kind of like tinkering with some of the maybe internal APIs they saw Webflow calling on behalf of like syncing data with their site. So just give it a look. If you're familiar with using some of these APIs that you see in this list, you'll find examples of kind of how to migrate off of that. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to developers@webflow.com for more questions, or if you just want a sanity check, we're happy to help you out here. Awesome. And now to talk about one of our featured topics here, we've got the MCP server, and so I'll hand it off to Virat.
Thank you, Zach. Yeah, so with the recent release of like MCP server, we added capabilities, extended capabilities for like designer APIs. So now we added tools which allows you to like create elements on your canvas real time. So we also introduced a new bridge app that allows you to like connect your MCP server with your Webflow project. So now you can have SE optimization. You can also do tools like create elements on a page. Variables APIs are also enabled on to this one. So yeah, super excited like what we are seeing like people are building, showcasing their workflow. So like super excited to see like new workflow this enables to you all. Next slide.
Awesome. And then I'll talk a bit about Code Components. So if you're not familiar, what Code Components is, and I kind of alluded to it a bit earlier, is with Code Components, you can import your React components into Webflow as Webflow components via DevLink. And this is really all done through a CLI tool that you can use to kind of push up to a shared library. And so with this, essentially what you can do is expose your React props as Webflow component props and help make that mapping seamless and one-to-one. And so you can kind of define that. And in our developer docs, we kind of help show you and guide like how you can take a React prop and kind of map it into this Webflow way of showing the property exposed in Webflow. These are server-side rendered, but you have the option to render them client-side if you've got some custom client-side code going on here. So just to kind of show some like use cases that we've seen in the wild and things that we've built. You can bring your existing React components from external code bases to Webflow. So this is helpful, for example, if you've got maybe a shared design system, a custom design system that you want to bring from like a web application that you've built into Webflow, so you can kind of have that one-to-one parity instead of trying to rebuild it in Webflow. You can do data binding with component props to CMS, and we'll kind of showcase a bit more about that later, and there's going to be some opportunity for improvement. You can also integrate with third-party libraries. This is probably the coolest part that we've been observing internally, is seeing how folks take their React components, use it with like another third-party library, maybe some like 3D UI transformation library, and then bring that directly into Webflow to see it just instantly click and render, and that's really exciting, and we can't wait to see more of that. We've seen some with JSON LD management, making that easier. And oh yeah, this one's probably a copy, but just kind of bringing those external components into Webflow. So now we're going to do some live demos. and I'm going to pass it over to Julian.
I have honestly just been ripping as many things as I possibly can with Code Components to see what it can do. I've been using Webflow, obviously, like I said, for a long time, like 7, 8 years, and it can do like 98% of the things that I want to do, but there's always those couple things. I don't work in agency anymore, but when I did, like a client just wants one specific thing. You're trying to hack around it. You're embedding like all sorts of custom code. You don't know where anything is. It's not fun. So that was why Code Components spoke to me so much. And I actually got challenged here to make CMS filters with it. And I have made custom code CMS filters in the past, but they kind of only worked with what was directly on Canvas. So what I did in this demo, and I have some other stuff too, but I'm going to start with this, is basically using the exact same way that FinSuite Attributes does their filtering. I'm able to get this like ridiculously fast, really nice looking filtering going. So I have a collection here with, you can see like 10 things on my screen, but I have 138 items. As you can see, it's showing how many I have. And if I search for like, veggie or something like that, that works. As you can see, it's ridiculously fast. Also, these range sliders. This is something I've never got working just with like native Webflow and FinSuite attributes. So that's why I really wanted to try this. As you can see, it updates everything in real time. If you look as well, I'll zoom in a little bit at the results. It is like ridiculously performant. And it's also super easy to update. So I'm kind of a fraud. I'm not really a developer, guys, if anyone didn't know that. I am a Webflow developer, and I have been using AI since it was like total garbage and just fun to play around with. So I do a lot of development with AI. So even for me, where I am no good developer in any way, shape, or form, it's super easy to update. So like one thing that I actually intentionally left out of this project is right now. So I'm actually using ShadCN for this. I love using ShadCN for absolutely anything because I'm not like creative guy. I just want it to look good, feel good, all that stuff. Anyways, so right now you can see the like active state border around this input is black, even though in Webflow, which by the way, if you haven't used Code Components, take a look at this. So I have all of these props grouped. So I can set like which field I want to search it by. So I have name, which lines up with my attribute over here, as you can see. Super good experience. Also, if you have clients, like you can make them a super complicated component and then make it really easy to update. So literally it is this easy. Again, if you write your own code, then you're better than me in that regard, but it's the same flow. So in this case, I'm just going to be like, my input has an active outline around it and it's black. Can we make it the same as the, what do I even call that? It's in styling here. Same as the accent color, right? So let's go for that. Hopefully Claude can do that pretty quick. But in the meantime, also the pagination down here with these page buttons, it's just, I've never got such smooth filtering and pagination work. Pagination? Doesn't matter.
I say pagination.
All right, let's go with pagination. I'll stick with that now. You just baked it to my brain. So yeah, it is ridiculously smooth. And while we're waiting for Claude, I have a couple of other things open here. One of them was just an accordion. And like I saw some people going, why would you do this with Code Components? And like, I don't know. But that was just a test. Down here, we have actual like weather data. So this can interact with APIs as well. This, don't mind the ridiculous background. This is like some Vanta JS thing right here. If you've ever had to make a chart on a Webflow site, like I have never had a good time with that. This is using recharts, which is also what ShadCN uses. And this is also completely configurable in Webflow. So I made this that I can reuse across other sites. And while we're waiting,
Julian,
okay,
I have a question for you.
go for it.
I would love to know if you were able to, were there things that you had to tweak when you were doing these code components? So I tried recharts very early, like before code components launched. And some things were good, some things I couldn't control, like colors and variables. I was wondering if you ran into anything, any caveats or kind of warnings that you had to work around to get it working, or was it pretty straightforward?
No, everything was straightforward. I didn't have an
Amazing.
issue with something that I couldn't update. The only thing that I wasn't able to get working was I was trying to use Swiper to make a component for that. But again, I think that just goes down to my own skill
Okay.
issue, as some would say. It's not, I don't think that's a limitation because I've been
Awesome.
able to
I'm
get,
glad to hear that, though. It means like you were able to get working really quickly. You've made these prototypes for real world scenarios where you've had clients ask for these things before. So
yeah.
this is great.
No, literally everything has been perfect. And shout out to the Webflow team for this beautiful button right here in the documentation. This has been an absolute godsend. Every single time, like if I want to get a project started with Code Components, click that, slap it over here into Claude Code, and literally I've had no issues.
I
Nothing
think
has.
something that people don't know is that we do have a full LMS.txt, but we also have it for each product. So Julian, if you go into your search bar and right after Code Components, oh, sorry, not search bar, in your Omnibar, if you where you put your here, if you right
Here.
after Code Components slash, if you just put llms.txt, you can just get all of the docs for Code Components specifically, so you don't confuse the LLM that you're working with, and paste this link into Claude, and then that will it'll kind of read the documentation or know kind of get way more context without getting overloaded by, you don't need the designer APIs right now.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
yeah, hopefully this helps.
I didn't even know that, but I have had no issues with it so far. So
Amazing.
like, this is probably going to make it even better. Claude is done over here, by the way.
Oh yeah,
So
let's jump back in.
I've gone ahead and done that. Now all I need to do is npx webflow library share. And then it's going to do its little check. It's going to ask me if I want to update it. And something that I think is super cool as well with updating these, so I'm going to say yes, is it kind of warns you. So you're not just going to like push it in and then get surprised by the fact that something has changed. So come on, running, sharing, beautiful. Now I can just go right over here instantly. As you can see, it says review changes. It's going to show me what has changed, accept updates. And then I can take a look and let's see if it is working as we want it to. So I'm just going to go ahead and publish it. I am an obsessive publisher. I constantly publish. I don't know why. It just makes me sleep better at night. So once this is done, let's go ahead and see if that's updated. It really is that easy. And by the way, you can and should test it locally, but I didn't in this example. Okay, well, my demo didn't fix it, unfortunately. So would have to go back and forth a few times. But really awesome stuff all around. And I could end it here, or I can do a super quick shout to Webflow Cloud. Either way. Can't hear you, Victoria.
Sorry, that was my mic was off. I have a question for you, and I would love if anyone has questions in the chat. Please add your questions. We'd love to know what you're building or what you're curious about. We wanted to highlight the CMS because we know that's kind of like the first things that people wanted to play with. Like you guys have said, this is something I've always wanted to do with Webflow. I was curious. I saw that you were using custom attributes. Can you explain a little bit about how you used them in order to control the sliders and the search with ShadCN components?
Yeah, so basically all I did was I actually just set up this list in the same way that I would set it up for FinSuite attributes. Exact same way, FS list element. We have our FS list fields, name, kcal, price, and then went over to Claude Code and basically explained my structure. I actually sent it as well, the docs to FinSuite attributes, and I said I have the exact same attributes as we have here, and I want it to filter based on that. And it completely worked. ShadCN, getting that to work took me a little bit more time. I don't know why, again, probably just skill issue, but that is all I did. FinSuite attributes, let it know the structure, told it I want to be able to filter, and done.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sharing. We're so excited to see you build, and we are sharing Julian's example. So we'll share a link to that on our docs. But for the next thing, I want to bring Virat to the stage because he's a great demo of something that people have been wanting to do in Webflow forever. So Virat, take it away.
So yes, let's demo time. So we are trying to build a CMS slider, and there are tons of solutions are available where we need to add a script, and we also need to add attributes to our CMS items, and like to make it work, right? With code component, we can now like take any React component, which is like there are SlickSlider JS, there are many libraries available for React. We can utilize those, and we can actually create a code component which works with the Webflow styles and everything. So here I have a code component which is using a SlickSlider, and I get all the controls with the code component. So that's a good thing because we now don't have to configure any attributes to our CMS list or a wrapper. So the way it works is I have a code component over here. It has a slot which accepts the other component, and inside that component I have an actual collection list wrapper, right? And if I have one attribute where it hides the actual CMS list, but I have added an attribute which shows, so which allows you to like just add it to your CMS slider. So like let me just move this button above, and also let me hide the now. So now if I see the preview, we see the actual slider, and one thing we notice is our styles are not working over here because that's how the shadow DOM works. Code component use shadow DOM, so our Webflow styles have been blocked. But trust me, like when we publish this and when we actually see, so let me just quickly publish. And it's deployed, so let's refresh. And now we can see our button moves and it's using exact styles coming from the Webflow itself. So let me deep dive into our code. So here's my like Webflow component, and I have defined all the props and all the settings that I need. And it takes my actual CMS slider component. So inside this one, the hack which I am using over here, it's not actually a hack, it's like how it works. So I have an actual div which takes the CMS collection component slot, right? And I'm taking making as a reference, and I'm using another hook. So if you are like working with the CMS, if you want to fetch all the CMS item, like copy this hook, and it should work on the any React project. So what it does, it's very simple. It takes the slots, and if it finds all the CMS item, so it queries all the items. I'm cloning those things, so I'm basically not affecting the actual CMS list, and then I'm just storing on a state. So I get all the CMS items, storing into that, and this hook actually returns all the items over here. And then I'm using SlickSlider where I'm just looping through those elements which I find, and I'm just rendering on a slide item. So this slide item is again, it's rendering a div. I'm taking a reference to that div and also appending those things. So again, I'm cloning the items since I'm using the slider as an infinite, so it needs to clone those items. And one second. Yeah, so that's how like all the CMS Slider works. And the clever thing that I'm also adding, and this is this hook, which is use shadow global style. What it does, it actually targets the all styles from the Webflow header sections and like move it to shadow DOM. So like any changes or any style you are making to your Webflow projects are also copied over to your global component. And since those styles are already loaded, it's not going to make another network code. It's just going to load. So when you publish the site, we see all the styles are actually working. So before that, like you need to use devlink and pull all the styles and then use on your component. But now with this hook, you can just pull all the styles from your Webflow project to your shadow DOM, and it's in the published project the style is going to work. So like I'm making any I can also even like have multiple collection over here, and it's going to work over there. So the but great part that I like is like I can make any design changes on my CMS item, and it's going to like take all the styles and this whole component the whole element of the CMS item and put it into slides. So if you are like working with a tip, they don't have to deal with any attributes or like move all the styles on your code or something like that. So this right now it's actually available into our code components example. So like if you go to example, you see CMS Slider example live code, and you can also see the GitHub repo over here, which explains all the things. So if you're looking, you can like copy if you're looking for the style, copy the shadow global style hook into your project, just use it over here. And if you want to like grab all the CMS item, this hooks, just copy this hook and it should work. So yeah, I'm happy to like answer any questions about the CMS items or like how to this website. Let me also stop share the screen.
Oh, infinite.
Oh yeah, it's
Virat, that is so cool. We had a question that somebody shared with us before about asking what is the best way to create code components and still let your customers style on their own in Webflow. And I think this approach is really, really interesting. I think there might be some guidance we have to do there in order to make people not scared in preview mode of like, no, when you publish, it will show.
yeah.
But that is so cool and kind of like just what people need to get started. So thank you so much for that. I'm sure people are going to dive in.
Yeah. So the way like Webflow designer work, it's like it's not attaching the styles to a canvas. It's actually like building in a separate way. But like when you go to preview mode and turn on the custom code, run the custom code, it should work. Like you can
Oh, cool.
preview. But for me, like I feel faster. Like just publish it and like it should work. So
Amazing. Oh, Julian, you fixed the active color. Awesome.
nice.
Yeah.
Second try. I have a link, by the way, I forgot to mention. You can copy and use my demo in like just a couple minutes. I made a video tutorial, but you probably won't even need it. Links are there. That's all for me.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing. I'm sure both everyone's going to check them out. We have shared Julian's example in our Webflow docs as well. And sorry, there is a very loud air dryer that is next to me in the studio. But I would love to know what people are using for code components. Drop it in the chat. We would love to learn more so that we can understand what is the next thing you're going to need. What do you really want to accomplish? What are you curious about if you haven't even explored it yet? Let us know. Send us a line in the chat. Always feel free to jump in the forums or some of the discords. We're there and we're listening, and on Reddit as well. So we just want to see you guys really win with these products.
So yeah, now that we've kind of covered those two major topics, we want to also give some time to talk about things that were recently released around those topics, but also other products as well around the developer platform, and then things that you can look forward to coming soon. So Vic, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, let's jump into the next slide. So Webflow Cloud, we already have Webflow Cloud storage with SQLite, key value store, and object storage. Right now, it was in a private beta, and it will be soon coming to GA with SQLite. I think with Webflow Cloud, it's nice to be able to have these storage options to provide more powerful web apps that can then also power some functionality on your Webflow site. I've been working on a couple examples, and I'm excited to share them very soon of how to use Code Components and Webflow Cloud together. One of the things we're exploring is kind of how to integrate or create like programmatic pages from something like using Greenhouse, and you have Greenhouse listings, but instead of hosting them on Greenhouse, you can host them on your Webflow Cloud site and then post some of those job listings or like little cards back on your Webflow site so people can see them, and you're all in your own site. You're not sending users out. And so we're looking at exploring how integrations and customizations like that can help. And a lot of that was powered by being able to have access to these storage options. We have a lot of examples that we've been updating and keeping up to date as new things come out, including authentication. Like I mentioned, that Greenhouse integration with careers pages. And you'll have a video of us walking through that soon. So if you need some help to get started or want to see kind of some inspiration, we'll share that to get you up and going with these new products. Cool. And then with Code Components, we just showed our awesome new demos. One other new demo that we have is is new to the site is the ShadCN UI components. We know a lot of people really use ShadCN. It's kind of like the first go-to to build your own component library. So you can see how we've implemented it to make it kind of to hit the ground running with it, because there are some setup steps that you need. So you can go ahead and get started with that. Give us feedback and let us know. File an issue on the repo if you're running into something. We'd really like to help you get to success and value very quickly. And then I think there's a lot of community resources that we've collected and are going to share after this when we share the recording. And we would love for all of you to keep sharing. I think, Zach, after this, are we showing some of the community love we've gotten for Code Components? Or is that,
Yes.
yeah, go ahead and show this. This is so awesome.
Yeah, we've got some probably familiar faces even on this stream. You can see Julian here talking about CMS filtering. Yeah, wave to the folks, Julian. Um, we've got Federico talking. He created this really awesome starter repo for Claude Code. If you use that tool, and it just makes it super easy to kind of get started with that kind of setup, and you'd be surprised with like how quick you can get hit the ground running with whatever kind of component you want to build. Of course, it'll take some tweaking. We all observe that with AI, non-deterministic, but this repo should help get you pretty far here. We've also got a really cool starter video, or not starter video, showing how to bring React bits into Webflow via Code Components by Bradford Huber. So shout out. Oh, that wasn't doing what I expected. um, we appreciate hearing you, Julian. Um, Also want to just shout out some other folks too. Michael Wells, you'll see him all over Reddit, all over the forums. You know his icon, you know his handle, but he's been doing some really awesome experiments with code components for untraditional things that we probably never expected. So, for example, doing things with like JSON LD. Management because they're server-side rendered, and he has a really cool loom. You'll find this in the forum, and once we share out these slides, all these like blue bits here are links, so you can kind of uh, find references to those and check out what he's built. He's also built an audio player with waveform displays on a Webflow site. Just really cool stuff. Um, our own Keegan from Webflow built this really cool ASCII shader. So you can find that on X. And we've got a really awesome getting started video from Vision Devs TV on just kind of, the quirks of working with code components using DevLink and the CLI and kind of how to get started there. So really the crux of it all is there's no shortage and no stopping of resources for getting started with code components. More is going to be coming out, but we're really loving all the stuff that we're seeing in the wild here from the community.
Yeah. Keegan and myself just wrapped up a video that we'll be posting on our YouTube for Code Components. So he'll show you how to get started with another library that is escaping me right now. But we really are just so impressed with the community and so thankful for just grabbing the bull by the horns. It's clear that you really wanted this product, but just seeing all the work that you've done with it is just amazing and like very mind-blowing. So on the next upcoming stuff, or maybe things that you might not have seen, Webflow launched support for LLMS TXT itself. And we also launched support via the API, so you can programmatically update that when you need to. So there are get, patch, delete endpoints as well. You also have more sorting options for pages and CMS items. So you can now search by created on and last updated, which before I believe you could only search and sort and filter on last published. So this is helpful. And then we have some more workspace audit log events that's more applicable to workspace admins or account admins. So we have a RSS feed in our changelog, so you can subscribe. You can subscribe to everything or just buy the product that you're using. But we are continuing to make updates, and we're very excited about some of them that are coming. Next slide, please. The designer APIs, please let us know if you've used the designer APIs, especially now. They're getting a lot more exposure with Barat's MCP server. So because underneath the hood, we're using those APIs to change and manipulate elements on the designer. And there are a lot of things you can do there. One of them that we just added was variable mode management, and you can now apply variable modes to styles as well. You can also set text and styles with the element builder. So the element builder is a way to quickly build kind of large nested elements or like SVGs directly on the canvas. And before we could only set, yes, thank you for that question. Where you could only set I think just the DOM and just the structure before, and then would have to make a bunch of sequential calls to set text or styles. You can now do all that in memory before sending it and setting it on the client, which helps build it even faster. So if somebody clicks the button in your app or even using the MCP server, it's a lot easier to build those elements. Definitely recommend playing with that. Also, there's a lot more support for forms that we've built over the past couple of months, and now you can set form input types to better manipulate forms and create forms programmatically and via apps, as well as CSS functions that were an amazing unlock when they were first launched for Webflow. You now are able to do that programmatically and set variable values, which is really cool. We have a couple of demos showing how you can kind of vibe code that as well and get a really cool palette. And in progress, I think something we're very excited about is we are going to uh, roll out component props management. So right now you can only create components on the canvas and you can create the structure, but the real power of components is creating the props so that people can then set them and make them dynamic on their own. And there is a big difference that we've seen of people who are actively building the components versus the people that are using them. So we want to be able for you to programmatically build them and get them all set up and ready before you ask somebody to use them versus kind of having the structure, but then asking someone to set up the props themselves. So very excited about that. And I think, again, all of these improvements also really help with the MCP server, which I think Virat's going to get into next.
Yep. Yeah. So we have new update coming to MCP server. The first one is like data tool consolidation. So instead of having like 42 tools, we're now going to have only 16 tools. So like those who are using Cursor or Cloud Code or Windsurf, we know like there is a limitation number of tools there. So like if you're dealing with like multiple MCPs, and many of the people are using like Playwright MCP, Figma MCP, and like if you combine all the tools number, it obviously going to go beyond 100, right? And with the Webflow MCP, just having 42 tools are the deal breaker. So like we hear you, and like on the next update, we are like consolidating those tools. So like instead of having like, for example, like we have a tool name called like say CMS list and then CMS update and then CMS get. Instead of having 3 tools, we now combine all the tools in by category. So like one CMS tool can also get, can write, and can also list, right? And the other update we are having is you can now tool can perform multiple actions. So that means like instead of having like LLM needs to make multiple tool calls, it can like ask like, hey, get me a site info for site A, site B, and site C, and it's just a one tool call, and it's going to return all the 3 response to LLM back. So it's going to make the workflow much faster, and it can also make the workflow much easier to explain to LLM. And the next update, sorry, for the data tool constellation on upcoming month on November, we are going to start rolling out this update to our MCP testing group. So if you are a Webflow partner, or if just reach out to us, we can like opt you into our testing group if you want to try out and give us a feedback to improve. And it's slowly going to available on the end of the November or so on. And also like we have a now prompt library which has the examples like you can use with the MCP. So like if you are like wondering where to get started with Webflow MCP, this is going to one-stop solution for you, where we are going to explain a step-by-step how you can prompt via Webflow MCP, and basically a mental model like how you should do. So some example are the one-shot prompts, or other can be divided into multiple prompts. So this can like have multiple examples. So this is also coming soon. Next slide.
Virat, can we go back to MCP really quickly? Are there any tips or kind of tricks or advice that you have for people who are working with MCP now? Like if you had to give like kind of like two nuggets of wisdom,
Yeah,
what would you say?
yeah.
I mean,
So
and also did we talk about that Virat as kind of the person who owns our MCP and has like created it from scratch, or did I miss that part?
No.
all
No.
right.
Oh my, Virat, please tell. I would really love to share that Virat kind of took like saw our first version of the MCP and said this should really work with the designer, and then on his own built the designer MCP and is now thinking of all the things that we can do with it. He's leading the tool consolidation, all of that. So if you want to talk to him about MCP, that's your person. But also he you kind of know how to make successful calls, how things work, and I would love to understand if you have anything to share about, what makes a good prompt or what makes something successful in Webflow versus maybe things taking a little too much time.
Yeah. Okay. So I think I have seen a very common misconceptions that if something is not working when you are working with MCP, it's like the fault of the MCP, right? If you are asking to create a section and like if you're not giving enough context, it's going to LLM is going to produce a very bad result, right? So it's not like uh, just applicable to Webflow, it's actually applicable to any MCP server. So the very first thing, MCP server provides tool to LLM, right? And you are the one who is going to guide the LLM in the right direction, which tools to use, how to use them, and those things. So all the LLMs that we are use are very generic and are built for very different purposes, and we are enabling with MCP server. So if you are using, let's say, ChatGPT, those are like built for conversation. Those are not built to like as a designer or calling data tools, right? So you need to write enough. You need to provide enough context to LLM so it can start the tool calls in a right order. So if you just ask like, hey, create a simple hero section, LLM is going to plan and it's going to come up with a design which it's very bad or very poor quality because it's just said, okay, I need to create a section. It should have a text and it just have an image, right? But if you elaborate that, hey, use Webflow MCP, let's plan first and uh, create the hero section, use class A, class B, also add heading, also add the two column layout. So it's going to create in that direction. So plan your prompt first with MCP, so with LLM, and then like execute them. So hope that makes workflow better.
Yeah, ever since you told me that piece of advice, it's definitely helped some of my problems with the MCP. So I wanted to make sure it was shared with the world. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I think one of my favorite analogies I kind of heard recently was like imagine like AI LLMs as like a coworker that just joined like 5 minutes ago. And it's like if you ask them to build a checkout page, they're gonna be like, what? They need the context of like what the product is, what needs to be on the like checkout page. And yeah, ever since kind of like understanding that, it's been like, yeah, I need to spend more time up front rather than just assuming it's like a magic wand that'll just do things without much context. Also get the LLM context of your class naming system. Oh yeah, this has been very key in working with the designer capabilities.
I have a question actually. So I I saw a post recently, and the the MCP can get your styles. It can get your style names. It can get the style properties and things. Uh, Virat, is there any recommendation you would have to say, hey, can you pull my list of styles and put them in a file and then reference that file so you don't have to like keep calling the tool? Or is there a way where you shouldn't do that or something might go wrong because you might be updating styles and I get confused? I'm just
Yeah,
thinking of a way to like kind of save time on calls or save money on tokens, and
yeah,
wondering are there any things we can do like that to save ourselves a little bit?
yeah. So if you are using a framework, let's say client first, I would advise like instead of like pulling styles, you can just reference a doc from that framework and ask like, hey, this is how you can use your style system. But if you are using a custom naming on style, we have a tool which can fetch all the styles, right? And if you're using cursor or Claude code, then those like every time you chat, those every files that you are changing recently are actually append to your chat silently without you knowing, right? So it can definitely improve those things. But as you mentioned, like when you update the styles or something, properties are going to change. Um, it's going to like outdate it, right? So always like, hey, when you are changing your style, just say that, hey, fetch the style's name, and we have a smarter tool now. So you can just fetch the class names instead of having all the properties. So it's not going to flood your context. And you can also ask
Amazing.
like, hey, fetch all the styles which having this particular property. It can also do those things. So but yeah, the good practice is like if you are updating styles, your job to tell to LLM that, hey, fetch all the styles, update our docs or the rule sets that we are using on a chat. But having on a local machine, and if you are using agentic LLM, let's say Cursor or a Cloud Code, that's going to speed up your workflow much faster.
Amazing.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, I guess moving on, we'll talk a bit about Webflow apps. So we've got some really exciting updates here. The first thing we want to talk about is something that we rolled out not too long ago, but we are kind of calling it test user groups. One big pain point that we've heard time and time again is, how come I can install the app on my own test site, but how come my friend can't install the same app on their site? Because when you give them the install URL, they can't, install it on any of their workspaces or sites. Nothing appears. Um, the big crux of the reason is that, like, for your app to be usable by the general masses to the public, we require that it goes through the app review process, whether or not you want it to be part of the app marketplace publicly or you want it privately listed, so you don't want anyone to find it. This just helps ensure quality, ensures that end users are know what they're installing and that it's up to snuff, has the best security practices through our review process and things like that. But there are definitely cases where before you go through the review process, you want to do maybe some beta testing, some user testing with folks. And so if you reach out to developers at webflow.com and just let us know that you want to set up a test user group for your app that's in development, we'll allow up to 5 users, Webflow users, to install that app on their site, even if they're not in your workspace. Just so that you get that reassurance that what you're submitting for the app review process is what intend for users and how they intend to use it. So this is a really exciting update. I think we'll eventually make this process a little easier going forward, but for now, you can just reach out to us and we'll be happy to get you set up there. Another really interesting feature coming up, not available yet, but coming up soon, are these app badges. So you can see here in this screenshot, from our apps marketplace, I took a screenshot of HubSpot, and you'll notice a few different badges here that didn't exist before. So you'll see things like there's a free plan available, how many total installs are done on this app, and also things like if it's trending, which kind of compares, the install count over the last month compared to like, the total installs and things like that. And so we're going to be kind of refining what some of these badges mean. We'll be sure to document what these badges mean as well. But we're excited to kind of just give more users visibility into the apps that you guys are building. If you're building Webflow apps, and just yeah, give you guys more improved visibility on the marketplace. So we're excited to invest more in that side. And then also alongside that, we're improving marketplace search to make apps easier to find. The last thing I'll plug here is we have these things called integration pages, and I think we might have a slide after this that helps. We're basically building this kind of database of all these different integrations that you can do between Webflow and XYZ kind of platform. And so if you've built an app, if you have an integration, maybe not even an app yet, that you'd like to submit content for, that you think there'd be a good integration path for, feel free to also email us at developers@webflow.com so we can help look at that content and help you kind of stand up that integration page on our end. And yeah, these are an example of like what this might look like in our integration subs. You'll see things like Zapier, Shopify. There's also things like Stripe, Vimeo, and things like that.
Yeah, there are a lot of new pages. We revamped that integrations resource, so definitely check it out if you're looking for any information on what Webflow integrates with or how you can set up integrations.
Awesome.
Amazing.
And now,
So we did run a little long, but I would love for people to drop any questions they have in the chat. Um, uh, I want to pronounce your name correctly, Srinad, and if I got that wrong, let me know. I'm happy to know better and do better. Your question was about styles and parent classes and being able to find the parent of a child class or a parent of a combo class of the designer API. I saw this on the forums, and it's something that uh, multiple people have asked. We brought it to the team, and they're looking at seeing if they can build another method, like get parent. I think that's something you suggested in order to do that. So I don't have anything on timing. I'll go back and ask about priority, but it's definitely something they have in their hands and are working on making a fix for, because it matters across so many things. And I think one of the things I can say is that we're going to see a lot more love to the designer APIs because they power so much of the MCP as well. So anything that we can do to improve that, it's kind of a multiplier, because it'll make kind of two products better. So I will definitely keep updates on that. That is something that we won't let drop, and keep you informed of. Any other questions while we're here, while you have us? While we're waiting for questions, I guess we can go to our next slide about keeping in touch with us. So we really appreciate the time that you guys set out today to chat with us. We always love engaging with developers and sharing the latest features, and also sharing pains, frustrations, breakthroughs, demos like we saw today. So hit us up if you have something that you want to demo as well. We have a developer newsletter that we share the latest features. We also are collecting community content to share. So we're trying to see more about what people are doing and share that, and say, like, what are best practices. And we also can inform about beta opportunities. So if you want to sign up for a beta, that's where you'll find that. For chatting in real time or kind of social, we have joined the unofficial discourse or unofficial Discord in the Webflow community Discord, as well as we're on our forums, and we're also on Reddit. You'll see us with our little Webflow tags there. And then I'll let Zach talk about the developer workspace.
sure. Yeah, so most folks know about this, but if you're not familiar, we have a developer workspace plan. It's not, going to be present if you try and create a new workspace on your own. You have to sign up through a form at the moment, and you'll find that in our developer docs. But the crux of it is it's a free workspace for developers to kind of test their integrations, test out new things like Webflow Cloud and things like that. And future things that we'll be including in the developer workspace plan, things that, for example, the custom code embed that may be behind other paid plans, just so you have the ability to kind of see what you can build for other users in the Webflow community. You can collaborate with your team, and it's free forever. So, no worries about having to, do this for 1 year or and then having to pay. It's going to be free forever. There are some caveats here, like you can only have no production sites. So basically just the Webflow staging sites. But that should be, pretty good to kind of, get started on whatever you're building.
There was one last question that was posted in the forums. The person couldn't join live, but the question was, is there going to be, it was a two-part one. What are the best practices and for code components to share with customers? And I think like creating props, usable props, creating some design components, but then also maybe using something like what Varrock did with his hooks to apply Webflow styles to the code component so that the styling happens in Webflow. And then the second question was asking, is there going to be a place or a marketplace where we can share code components so that we kind of monetize them or get our names out there? That's not something that like I know about, but one thing I wanted to point out was the community has launched its own marketplace, which is really cool. I think we'll have marketplace improvements in the future, and I think it would be a missed opportunity if we didn't do that. But right now, Michael Wells has launched his own components marketplace. So I think it's very new, but if you wanted to check that out and get your components there. That is a perfect place to do it. I'll drop a link when we share the video as well. But I would say more to come from Webflow on that, but nothing permanent right now. But thank you so much for that question. I wanted to make sure we answered it since you weren't here. Awesome. I think that's it. We're over time. So thank you so much for joining. Come back next month and we will have more updates for you guys. Bye, everyone.
Awesome. Bye.